Alrighty then. Oh, well, that was a succulent clap. I'm not sure those two words should have been used following each other, but hey guys, what's going on? Memes here. Now, I'm sure this MML number 22 will not enrage anybody. Why? Because remember, it's not your typical destroys video or destroy whatever, all capital letters because that's very important. But I wasn't quite sure what we were going to go over. I thought we were just going to do some topical science news. And coincidentally, about an hour ago, I saw some topical science related news. It's in regards to academia. So while I was getting ready to come up with whatever we were going to be discussing here, don't worry about any of the stuff on the board. I already took a picture of this. This is Stad's genius. This is not. It's also much cleaner handwriting and stuff. But what we're going to be talking about today is, will LLMs destroy academia? Now, you we're going to highlight an instance of, again, I'm just a dude on the internet. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, although I am wearing a a lobster a lobster shirt right now. I am not associated with Professor Peterson, except for that time that I went to one of his events and told him he was a pretty good wizard, a person who changes the world around them via verbal and somatic components, i.e., their words and action. Now, that may or may not be the required components to weave spells within Dungeons and Dragons, at least back in 3.5, whatever the heck they do now. I don't know. Uh, but I thought it was a fitting. Forget the time. I happen to have some disagreements, but that's for another time. Okay. Now I understand it's a very popular thing to get on the bandwagon of, oh, academia is bad. Oh, it's all bad. It's academia. It's terrible. It's no good. It's very bad. Anytime you need to use as many negative adjectives as in Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. When you got to put that many negative adjectives for your before you introduce a topic, you might be a little biased. Just an opinion there. Now, and we all know nobody would express a fact, excuse me, nobody would ever express their opinion as fact on the internet. That would be wrong. Hey, WWKK, good to see you, my friend. But we're gonna let some folks roll in here. Don't worry about all the crazy stuff on the board. That's just, we were thinking about some other stuff and things earlier. But and again, full disclosure, I haven't been in academia in, let's see, about 15 years, something like that. It's, hey, I was on like the 8 year plan or something. I my last 3 credits to fulfill, I did with a professor for like some research assignment and stuff. And then I just went on like Thoughtbot and just like calculated stuff for like World of Warcraft and never submitted the thing. So I had to go back, redo that thing, and then I just took a standard elective class a number of years later to fill in the gaps. Okay. My thing is, personally, I actually had a pretty good time in within college and everything. Now, full disclosure as well, my high school history teacher that also was a professor at that school that I did not take for philosophy class taught me a lot more in from philosophy or about philosophy than my, I think he was probably an adjunct professor in college. It seemed like as we were reading along in class, that may have been his first exposure to the material. Now again, hey, academia, it can be a pain in the butt. There can be some very good things as well, just because, well, if you happen to get tenure and stuff, hey, you do what you want. You can be around a lot of resources and everything. Now, I'm sure none of the negative aspects of bureaucracy would ever take hold in academia. That's not the topic for this, but it's just a personal observation about things that would never happen in large, multi-layered anythings. Does that mean the cake is a lie? I really hope the cake is not a lie. That makes me very sad. Okay, but let's get down to what we're actually talking about here, as we terrifies folks away because they're like, oh, this is supposed to be the science stuff and things. But this This is actually a very multifaceted thing. So let's first bring up uh, the actual tweets and stuff. Hold on, let me get my other window going. But all right, so let's go over here. We go on to the Twitters, aka the X's, the X Twitters, whatever you want to refer to it as. Okay, and let's go over to originals, biz.org, boom. Okay. All right, hopefully. All right. I'm not sharing anything else that I probably shouldn't. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we go to our friend over the Twitters. Let's share with the class. Boom. Okay. Well, I noticed this tweet. This was about an hour or so ago. Okay. This is from phys.org. All right. Nearly half of students in 7 European countries expressed concern over plagiarism detection software leading to counterproductive writing practices. Clearer guidelines on education on its use are needed. All right, that's from the University of Copenhagen. Looks like, oh, well, they've got like nobody there. All right, let's give them a follow. All right, so I got this little study here. What is this study? The dark side of text matching software worries and counterproductive behavior uh, among European secondary school and bachelor students. Okay. I do not want all the cookies. Sorry. Yeah. Let's reference. I don't want any of the cookies. Sorry. Just the way we try to convey information, but we need your information. Really? No, thank you. Okay. But they actually have the article over here, so we'll just open that. Okay. All right. So you see a student here. Now, here's the interesting thing. Some you could frame this as, oh, there's a whole bunch of students just complaining about all this stuff. They're abusing the LLMs, the chat GPTs, and everything. That may very well be the case. Now, what's interesting is you could view it as that, but I'm like, all right, number one, if you're a student, you're actually doing your own work and everything. This shouldn't be a problem unless you're speaking with a voice that you're generally accustomed to, that maybe you're viewing and reading. It's not like there'd ever be any false flags. God, we have enough surveillance equipment for the workforce and stuff nowadays. It's like, what do you need to upload a random thing on your computer to make sure the kids are actually typing? I mean, you could actually do that. It's not like privacy is an issue anywhere. It's Europe. I just a little. Okay. But here's the thing. You start looking at this and they go through study. Around half of the high school university students from 7 European countries are concerned about the use of plagiarism detective software in education. Their concerns lead to counterproductive behavior and misdirected learning, according to the researchers behind the site. Here's the thing. If you're trying so hard to write in a voice that's not going to get caught, that's been trained on the entire I'm just saying there are some YouTubers that I follow and they literally sound like LLMs. Like if it wasn't just them on the screen and going through and everything, it's I'm not saying that ChatGPT learned a lot of science stuff from Anton Petrov, but it wouldn't surprise me because I'm listening to these things. I'm like, oh my God, that just sounds like how Anton talks because it's he's keeping things in a very easy to digest, understandable manner. And if an LLM is good at that, okay, well, here's another question. What happens if the LLM is trained on your writing? For instance, no, it's was it quantum space theory? It's one of Thad's books. It's in the Library of Congress, and ChatGPT is trained on the Library of Congress. You could just have it right in his voice. Now, I don't know if it's using your own voice. If you trained it on that, at that point, you might be able to do it, but you would actually require actual work, work to base it on. Um, Again, personally, I think writing is it's kind of like a personal like if you just want to just generate stuff to generate stuff, but if you're actually trying to like leave your mark, so to speak, but then again, the question is, do kids actually feel like it's worth the time? full disclosure, I totally use Spark Notes and stuff, and I remember literally putting so much effort into not reading a particular summer reading title. And we went through the Spark Notes, and then we need to find quotes, and we need to analyze the quotes from different parts. The amount of effort spent avoiding reading that book probably would have just been easier to just read the dang thing and just do the work. That's that's a side joint aside. But okay. Let's see. Let's continue a little bit with this, and then we'll break down further the other interesting Hydra heads that might be going. Paradoxical that a technology intended to ensure academic integrity is causing unnecessary worry among students. Our research shows that uncertainty about how the software operates, how it's used, and what constitutes plagiarism leads to worries and counterproductive writing practices, says the researcher. You know, that's a very interesting thing because how the heck does it work? What happens if you're literally getting flagged for plagiarism and stuff and you're like, I didn't even know I was plagiarizing? Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Let's actually, let's, okay. We'll finish this and we'll get into the actual discussion because this is absolutely fascinating. Brains out, smart the software not to learn. Okay. See, this is fascinating because now, if you know certain phrases like remarkably, this leads to, or there are certain things where you can just put a bunch of text in there and basically it'll tell you the percentage chance approximately that it actually was generated by an LLM. Now, what happens if somebody's general writing voice is like an LLM? I'm just saying I've literally been called the NPC at some points. So, but here we go. Interview students describe how they avoid reusing sources from previous assignments when unnecessary, rewrite text to outsmart the software development against which Mads Ken's works. The biggest issue is the worry itself. But the students lose focus on writing and ethically, on writing well and ethically. Yeah. Well, I just remember I feel like I needed a bit more than a 3 credit class for ethics. That's a side thing. Goddison emphasized that plagiarism detection software cannot independently determine whether plagiarism has occurred. It merely highlights text overlaps. Understanding this distinction is crucial. There's nothing inherently wrong with paraphrasing or reproducing content from other sources in the assignment. It is largely what academic writing involves, as long as it's done transparently. Duh. However, today, such practices may pop up in plagiarism checks because the software identifies similarities in phrases and formulations. This makes students nervous and renders the software ineffective if used on its own. Goddess again explains. Now, notice a couple of things. Using it in and of itself. Now, if you're just using that, isn't it the job of teachers and professors to actually read it? It's not like they're just going to kick it back and let something use that. That would be wrong. Feel humanity falls along a very broad spectrum. Okay. However, many students in the study mistakenly believe that the software alone determines what counts as plagiarism, even though this is not the case. It's being used as a tool to perhaps find plagiarism. This misunderstanding makes the students change their writing behavior to adapt to the perceived control. For example, one Dage's undergrad stated, I'm really afraid to gamble with these things. So I make a lot of footnotes, roughly 80 to 90 in a 12-page assignment. I have not had any critique yet, but I don't think it's what you're actually supposed to do. Okay, they're talking about clearer guidance on persistent practices. Okay, it's linked in the doobly-doo. Okay. So the topic for today is, will LLMs destroy academia? Okay. I saw this posted on the Twitter account, the dumpster fire that Twitter is of physics.org. And it's fascinating because a lot of students, they seem to be like afraid that, well, this is only what's going to be used. Oh, if it detects us, oh, we're obviously plagiarists. Whereas the article says it's like, well, that's not the only factor. And I sit back and I'm like, I'm sure no professor would ever just throw it in there and just let it do most of the work. I mean, that would be lazy and you wouldn't be doing your job then. It's but basically if you just look at the tweet on itself, it's like, oh look, a whole bunch of students are just complaining about, oh, they're gonna get caught for plagiarism. So having spent enough time playing around on Wolfram Alpha and inverting some things and reinverting others, you end up realizing that, wait a second. So if professors can use this for students' work, not like any students would go back and feed in all their professors' published works in that to see if they've been plagiarizing. That's not how this works. This is a one-way street right here. One of the reasons I bring this up is because it is very popular for a lot of folks to just like bash academia. Oh, it's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, yeah, yeah, yeah. Adjectives from Alexander's terrible day, yada yada. Anytime you gotta use that many things for a kid's book, it makes you wonder a bit. But it got me to thinking because there have been a number of publications like they have that LK99 superconductor thingy and everything like that. It's like, oh, it's super room temperature, or no, room or high temperature. No, high temperature is still pretty cold. Room temperature superconductor. And if that was true, that would be fantastic. They got a little piece to kind of almost do the levitation thing there. It just seemed to have ferromagnetic properties. I was cautiously optimistic, but you have folks that will put things out there, and some things are obvious where it's like, yeah, that's not right. I've shared the story before where I used to do a lot of gaming and we were in the kind of like an end game, higher level guild and stuff. All of a sudden, someone does a server transfer, and this person looked familiar. I'm like, I think I read some posts from this person in the forum. They had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And then I watched them play, and they had all this fancy gear. It's like, how could you get up to like such a high level, have all this gear, and be so terrible at playing a mage? And then one of our rogues at one point was like, so where did you buy that mage? That person logged off and never logged in again. Because obviously they had, at least, I don't know, but it seems like they had bought the account from somebody. That was the thing that would happen. But we all know it's not like there are any well established folks out there that completely BS or did not do their proper due diligence with all the stuff and things. It's not like anybody would ever be like, well, this is my friend. Yeah, we'll let it slide. No, that's not how it happens because good academics, they have a very high bar. And even if it's their friend, they'll let them know. They'll give critique on what might be going on because you want to get better. You want to be less wrong because there's one thing for certain, it's that we are uncertain. So we seek to be less uncertain. Now, I think it's going to be very interesting as this software rolls out and people just start doing it to a lot of the academic work there. Because ultimately, hey, I don't really care, but it's if you go through, now maybe we'll be able to see who were the first people that were discussing these topics. Maybe we should be giving credit to some other people, and we just kind of latch things on because I don't know how many things are named after Euler. That Euler wasn't even, or excuse me, Euler. Uh, Euler was attributed to him that yeah, maybe he worked on, but it was actually folks a long time before that, or like was it the Fibonacci triangle and stuff like that. It's like, no, people from all over the place had kind of known about that. But now we can actually start to go through and see what was discussed before. And I'm sure none of the folks that are very loud harping on other people would ever be guilty of the things that they're harping on other people about. That would be being a hypocrite. Nobody would do that. Um, the other thing, which if we actually include in LLMs, what might be going on is you've got technology being rolled out. Like I know within the Wolfram language, one of their new projects is actually an LLM like math assistant. Well, they have the assistant, but actually a tutor, excuse me. So they're training basically right now an algebraic tutor to help teach people algebra, because that seems like some form of what people could actually get going, and you could actually tune to a person's writing style as well and their learning style. Because I don't know about you, but it's like whether it's old school stuff or common core, it's like, all right, so it's like, well, if Timmy has 4 apples and Sally has 5 apples and Sally gives Timmy two, all due respect to Timmy and Sally, I don't care how many apples they have. It's talk about something useful. Talk about video games, Pokemon cards, whatever. And if you actually have the ability, actually, Dr. Tom Crawford from I think he's up at Oxford now. Um, he actually gives lectures on Pokemon, like the maths of how you would go about the Pokemon battle system. You start to look it out. To be fair, I actually still need to listen to some of the more things. I mostly got into him from like the math reaction or mathematician reacts to like the crazy things for, oh god, I forgot the channel where they have like the math and they have the little stick figure dudes and they're battling and everything. I thought that was really fun. Maybe we'll do a review video on here sometime, but because that is fun. But the thing is, things need to be engaging. Where it's like still a few years ago, I didn't really care about math. It's like, yeah, no, I did some of the stuff in college. There was an easy way to get around it. Well, I'm probably just going to do that as best I can. Uh, you ultimately, for most anything, you want to learn the underlying things. Either that or just coast as easily as you can through what may be going on. Okay, but what I also find interesting is if we start to have online tutors that rather than having to have one teacher that, God, I still remember growing up, we had like 18 kids in the class, and I went to like 20, and then 22, and then 24. And I graduate from school after it was like 32 or 34 or something. And now they're like bringing in portable classrooms because there's so many students per kid and everything. And I'm sure that has no consequence to the quality of education or anything. That's just numbers. But the interesting thing is that if we start to utilize these new tools, if we start to have LLM actual assistants and everything that are starting to take over, that are starting to educate kids, adults, whatever it might be, and they have the ability to very quickly attune to one's particular style and everything, and they can figure out how to best help you learn and understand the topic. um, what happens to teachers? If you have some bots or assistants and stuff, now personally, I think there's still going to be places for teachers and stuff, but it's really places for like exceptional teachers, the teachers that are great at doing things. Not everyone is Professor Terry Tao, so it raises up. Um, that's a good point. No, Thad was commenting that if we actually have better assistance, if we can use the tools, that can help teachers excel. It can help them level up, so to speak, and that if they know how to do better things, they can do better as well. And I'm totally for that. Um, will that necessarily be everybody? Statistically, probably not. Um, it's kind of like certain jobs kind of go away, and this is kind of a sad thing. I got a lot of friends in academia and everything, but we're gonna have a very dynamically changing workforce. And I know this isn't generally my bit more recently, um, but I'm talking about this because this is going to be, we are in, as Andrew Yang, I think it said, the fourth great industrial revolution right here. I mean, just things are going to be going by so much quicker, so much quicker. I mean, look at most of like the little things on a lot of websites will have like a little LLM thing built in and everything. I know Wolfram now has their own assistant that you don't even, what is it? I still need to sign up for it, but it's basically their own little LLM to the side thingy and stuff. It can help you write code and stuff. Because normally, if you have ChatGPT Plus or whatever, you can download. the Wolfram LLM and or the Wolfram GPT there, and then use this plugin, and it will go into Wolfram Alpha and do calculations and stuff that you can ask in natural language. Um, but it's going to be very interesting in that if you happen to have, and then what happens if, okay, you have your standard academia, you have your standard layout and everything. What happens when different folks are like, oh, well, I just gonna teach myself. What happens if you have a polymath, some basically genius that's sitting there like learning all these? What happens if they actually figure out things? I mean, it shouldn't matter where a good idea is going to come from, but it's it's very it's computationally irreducible. I don't have an answer. I'm just simply speculating with you all here and see what we get. KK is commenting that it will degrade the learning capacity rather than learning concepts. Okay. Instead of projecting originality, they're going to basically look for ways to loop around because that's the thing. It's like, how does it actually work? What happens if it's like, well, you plagiarized all these things? It's like, no, that was in my head. I came up with it because I read something. It's just going to be a very interesting bar because here's the thing. What happens if a teacher points out that, oh, well, this came up, and they start pointing out things, and then the student's like, yeah, look at your own work. How many of these things are? So it's what do you do? What do you do? It's like when it comes to rules for thee, but not for me. Yeah, people just check out. So I'm sure no examples of that will happen. I mean, it's that was really what got me to bring up that article, just because I looked at that and it's like, okay, students have concern. No, we should we should at least listen to what some of these students' concerns are. And then you could always pitch it as, oh, they're just students complaining. Students always complain. Okay, well, what's the issue? We're afraid this thing's gonna maybe false flag us, or it's gonna distract us, or maybe it's not gonna allow us to actually cheat. Oh, that's right. Well, see, yeah, that's one of the things too. With what happens if you're really good at saying things the right way, using particular verbiage and stuff, and then you actually sound like the LLM because that's what the LLM is basically being told to do: say things in a correct, scientifically robust way. So it's see that would be very interesting. What happens if a student is failed because they say they did this, but they legitimately did it all? And I don't know, what do you have to do? Do you have to live stream your own work? No, that's what Wolfram does. But I've tried doing that before. That just threw me off. I just like having the conversations here. Let's see. Uh, Case saying as a younger students will increasingly have a larger and larger fraction of true information they have explained to them come progressively from LLMs. Their language chunks will start resembling that. I think that's already happening. I think Professor Wolfram had even said he had visited some kids where their teacher had introduced them to the Wolfram language. And a bunch of little kids come up to literally Stephen Wolfram himself, and they start talking to him in code. And he's like, I honestly can say I had no idea what they were saying. The creator of the Wolfram symbolic language didn't understand what the kids that were speaking the Wolfram language to him were saying, because they really knew it. They were going really fast and everything. So perhaps it's a speed thing as well. Yeah. Oh, well, I think that ain't that the truth. I think that's just memes core down. It's replicating things. Whatever it is, it's you hear that saying, you hear it a lot, you start putting it in, it becomes part of the general lexicon, the words and the stuff that we use on a regular basis. And that's totally fine. But it's a very interesting dynamic. Which way it's going to go, it's like I don't know. It's like because well, John Green brought this up. He brought this up on basically he had been on Blue Sky. Let's go to. think we may have mentioned this before, but basically, he had a conversation that okay, so he's on Blue Sky. He makes a post, and all of a sudden, shortly after the post, he goes through there's some comments, and there was actually a decently thought out argument challenging him on points. So he's like, "Huh." He thought about it, and he's like, "All right." He types a response. Several hours go by, and then eventually, he's like, "This person hasn't responded. That's kind of strange. I thought we were going to have a good, fruitful discussion." And he ends up going to the account and he looks all right. Something it looks kind of looks real and going through, and then it's like the only thing that account does is literally find decently, I think, people with a decent amount of followers or whatever. And if they say something, it basically states a decently thought out argument. Now, it wasn't like vile, it wasn't like an automatic a lol, blah, 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 a bunch of profanity and stuff like that. It was actually thought out and at least seemed like it came from a real human being. Upon quickly investigating the account, he's like, "Oh my god, I got into an argument with an argument bot." And he's like, realistically, to run this account probably costs maybe $1 or something like that a year with the current paradigm and everything. So it's like, oh my god. Now, if it's just saying a whole bunch of horrible things, it's like, oh yeah, you block that because it's either a bot or just someone's trying to flame you or something. Stuff like that that's been going on the internet for a long time. But the fascinating thing is it was just enough to get engagement from a green brother, but it passed at least the Turing test of engagement in that all of a sudden it got engaged with there, and it's like, wait a second, I just spent a part of my life I cannot recover arguing with some an argument bot. Now, if you're arguing with a real person, are they real people? Have we been arguing with bots the whole time? But it just makes you think that, okay, if we can get that engagement now, how long is it before you literally just start having like Zoom class meetings and people will just have like their own avatars, their own LLMs will already have their voice mimicked, and you just end up having the digitized version of you just going through the class. I'm sure no teachers would do. Oh my gosh, it's just a college just full of an entire class of just agents, but literally with none of the actual students there. And what happens if the teacher does the same thing? Hey, I'm just at Kokomo right now. I'm having my teaching aide, aka agent, actually doing the work, and we're just gonna sit around and pretend to do stuff. I'm sure that won't happen. Here's the thing: it's technology always lagged behind. Excuse me, law always lags behind technology. That's just a general thing that always seems to happen. It's and they've been saying that for years, and I've literally been watching it happen. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. And then the internet became a really big thing and everything. And you're like, we haven't updated anything. It's like, no, again, maybe that's partially a reflection of our lawmakers. If we have lawmakers and a lot of them haven't used email until more recent days and everything, you're going to be a little bit behind. Is this why, like, our nieces and nephews are the ones that are already setting up, like, our new technology just because they're a little sponge and, like, well, obviously, this goes here, and everything. And you're like, all right, I had enough trouble setting up a Nintendo when I was a kid. These kids are geniuses now. But what will happen? Very, very hard to say. What else we got? We replicate, copy, mutate. It's so that's an interesting point right there. Okay, let's talk about mutation, mutation, replication, and mutation. Now, I was a fan of the Ninja Turtles growing up. Okay, but one of the other things that you end up finding happening is you ever play the game of telephone? This is something that I learned in the 6th grade. And you have probably, I don't know, we probably have like 24, maybe 26 students in the class. And you play the game of telephone. Okay. You have to teach them. The teacher sets them to a person. You go all the way around to the last person. Okay. So it starts off with like green eggs and ham. All right. And it comes out as stinky loafers and green beans. And it's like, okay, that's kind of close. Or maybe, okay, maybe this will get some folks up. It's like up in arms. But you get your original Star Wars trilogy. It goes around. What do you get? Some folks may say The Last Jedi. Too soon. Too soon. I didn't think it was the worst movie in the world. Personally, I just didn't think it was a great Star Wars movie. It's casual, but that's one of those things where somebody will hear something or somebody will say something, and then somebody will, okay, let's say that little bit is true. Got this little bit of truth. Okay. You tell it to somebody. And then we all know nobody would ever have an old sailor's tale about we got attacked by the ginormous dragon that was larger than the entire castle and everything. Yeah, it's not like we call them old fishing tales for a reason. Nobody would ever embellish anything. That would just be for their own self-interest, and human beings don't do that. It's what little boys and girls, yeah. I say this is a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad person. Yes. See, if you practice saying something like that, I think it was Professor Wildberger that said, what is it? Repetition makes the ridiculous seem reasonable. You just say it enough time, enough folks are saying it. It's got to be the wisdom of the crowd. It's not like people have been deceived or anything like that. It's why would we utilize deception unless we didn't trust people? I think I swig back and slightly scald my throat with some fresh hot cocoa. Yes. But where else were we going here? Okay, so number one, what are the problems that we have? All right. So we've got LLMs and everything, and we all know everyone's being very nice, and it's not like they're offloading their entire workloads to that, because at that point, it's like, well, why don't we just hire the LLM? Okay, so within the fourth great industrial revolution, some jobs are probably going away. Just or they can transform. I remember, hey, we used to have meter readers for the gas and the water and everything. And eventually we just hooked up some antennas to them. Well, they'll sell antenna, SIM card, and everything. Bada boom, bada bing. You don't have to have folks going around. And oh, hey, Jax, thank you for joining, my friend. We're just we're discussing the intricacies of what may or may not happen with LLMs. Will LLMs destroy academia? Now, I think in a lot of ways it's going to enhance it, but ultimately we're bringing in new agents, if you would. LLM agents. Is it going to be AGI? Is that a thing? Are we generally intelligent? We speculate that. Some may disagree. Just have dissenting opinions and stuff. I want to do that respectively, because otherwise we're just going to think you're just a bot. I'm a scaly, I can say that. But it's one of those things where, okay, we're going to have new dynamics coming in. We know that these tools are available, kind of just like, well, no, we had Cliff Notes, we had Spark Notes. Teachers knew that stuff was available. That's why you'd have to have the quotes from the books and everything. Okay, so what happens if okay we're employing all this new software? We're gonna see if those students are cheating. All right, number one, I'm sure if you ask the LLM very nicely and you condition enough time to write around it, it's not like an LLM would learn to go around the software, especially if you train it on the software. Okay, so I'm sure that wouldn't be an issue. All right, number two, I'm sure this will only be used for current students. I'm sure nobody would ever go through former students and professors and faculty members' work with this same plagiarism software and find plagiarism. God, that would be so embarrassing. Ugh. Yeah, see, that was the point because from the outside, it looked like one thing. When you start to read through the article, it seems like another thing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, if it looks like this, but a lot of it's like this, what if we kept doing our orthogonal turn thingy? And we rotate it all the way around. See, it's really fascinating. And then I started thinking about the Wolfram thing. I'm like, well, Wolfram is literally using LLMs to generate an AI style tutor right now to teach kids math. If you could teach kids math with a personal assistant, especially maybe if you gave it like an adorable avatar, and then maybe like a celestial wolf girl or something like that, it's maybe people will be a little bit more inclined to that than listening to Clippy the Paperclip that drove us insane. Well, LLM. What? Yeah. No, I know that's not my normal thing, Jax, but here. Let's uh I mean maybe you could say that. I'm unsure if that would be the best thing, but oh, I do like noodles. Real noodles. Not the okay. Oh God, that's nightmare fuel. All right, let's go to the less nightmare fuel-y version. Okay. I'm just saying, like hypothetically, if you were to utilize a teaching assistant, I'm just saying, I think, okay, if you had the choice between, oh God, where is that? Here we go. If you had the choice between being taught math via a paperclip with ginormous eyebrows or an adorable, hungry looking wolf girl, which would you choose? Now, especially if it was from a company called Wolfram. It would need to be adorable and it must be a wolf. Why? Because that's what Stephen Wolfram said. Okay, we're gonna because we'll go on a rambling tangent because this is just a train wreck of my monastery life. Okay, what am I? Oh, where? Oh, this guy. Ah, yes, the unlinked videos that you have that all of a sudden seem to have more views than you remember. All right, where are you? Is that a short? Hold on, let me manage my videos. Oh God, we go here. No, go to the thing. That's all right. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Stop. Boom. 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 Wolf from a system wolf. Here we go. All right. Go, Professor. Tell us what's going on.
A suggestion. Wolfram Assistant, to make it more relatable, add a tiny avatar at the bottom, an adorable one. Yeah, well, if we're going to do that, it's got to be a wolf. And we have all sorts of wolf imagery that we've produced. I have to say, I think that those kinds of avatars, the Clippy the Paperclip, gave those things a bad name. Although it wasn't a bad idea, it's just a bit too early.
Again, I agree. I think it was a good idea. It just popped up and its advice never really seemed to help me. It was always a little bit off topic or no, Clippy, that's not what I want. And now I need to spend the time and effort to move my cursor over to click you away. Yeah, no wonder Clippy felt the way that I did after all that. Okay, but I'm just saying that, all right, if you're going to add in an avatar, if the criteria was it must be adorable and it's got to be a wolf. Now, I'm just saying Biz may get at least two out of those two things. So we've been trying to work with her on the math and stuff. She went to math cap She may have been reading some smutty magazines instead of doing math, but she learned some things. But that's okay. Okay. So tangent aside, uh, life is a game. Well, that's kind of how I've been doing it, for better or worse. You got a power level for the end game, man. You got to collect all that stuff and things so that you have enough resources, and or you get some high levels to help you, because that's totally fine. Okay, I've really been rambling on about nothingness for about 45 minutes. Uh, I still need to watch Red Dwarf. I've heard very good things. I think. Is it Bill? Hey, Keisho. Good to see you, my friend. But so here's the question. Okay, let's look. We can look this up. Is Red Dwarf on any? Well, it's got to be on some streaming service. Somebody's got to be milking that thing. Uh, not that that's the most important thing in life, but oh, it's almost amazing. See, part of me was like, all right, number one, if I do this, this isn't normally the thing that I get. It's like, let's just play into rage bait. It seems like, and I could be wrong at this, but it seems like at least the stream with the clickbaity things and everything, here's some rage bait. Channel may not be primarily in the rage bait category. That's fantastic. Not for this current broadcast, but at least for knowing in the future. That means that I can really start talking about the sciencey stuff and things, and just keep talking about the sciencey stuff and things, because that's how I kind of assume the algorithm generally works. Because a lot of larger channels are like, "Oh, it's going to end now. It's going to end. Why? Because we were talking about topics, and a bunch of other smaller creators came there, and they started getting more views." Because they would actually get recommended. I actually got recommended one of these things the other day myself. So I'm like, if that's based upon my algorithm and it's showing me some of the stuff that literally I was interested in because it's within the algorithm, that makes sense. Um, Maybe we'll just do rage bait. No, not rage bait. Just short little things, because a lot of things. Some people like Thad. He loves to go out. He'll talk about all the things. Talk about all the things for like 2 hours. It's like, really don't got much. If I'm interviewing somebody and I got a lot of questions, yeah, maybe like an hour and a half or so, depending on how it goes. But it's like, for me to just talk about just a single thing, like, and even this, it's like, I'm not really a big rage bait type person, but it's like, I look at the rage and then I'm like, all right, what direction's it going? What happens if we did one over that rage? Because this whole thing started with, let's just recap for the folks. All right, we don't need. Okay, I'm not going to say we don't need Fizz, but we don't need Fizz for that picture. So the whole thing was, all right, go here, boom. Will LLMs destroy academia? Okay. Why? Because it literally just came from Fizz.org, Twitter account there. And it's like, I see that. And below this, where I put the yellow stuff, it's like, students are worried. And we went over some of the stuff in the thing. The link is in the doobly doo, of course, if some of you want to look at it. But I added the question for students, professors, because remember, and okay, we're gonna separate slightly, and some of the folks that are here, they know what I'm talking about because they've seen it enough before, and I think a lot of folks know what I'm talking about. Okay, what the heck am I talking about? The whole thing with the us versus them, who are them? Everyone that's not us, obviously. Uh, Included in the group, outcluded in the group, disenfranchised, this, that, you don't have the right politics, yada, 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 whatever it might be. Okay. So the very fascinating thing is the dynamics, because some folks will be like, oh, my principles. Why? Oh, this person did a bad thing. So we must go against them. Why? Because it's a matter of principle. Now keep that principle in mind. Even maybe, I don't know, maybe work with an LLM friend and be like, please document this principle, explain this principle. And then if you see that same person that was beating their chest about their principles, and they or somebody they like happen to do something that seems just a little bit hypocritical or is completely going against what their principles were, um, might there be a little double standard? And then they have to explain away, no, this is different for these reasons and these reasons. No, I know this person, they're a good person. So aren't you saying all the things that folks on often the other side are saying about the other person? You just said was a terrible, no good, very bad person? Okay, Alexander. It's irony, and that's why I think a lot of it really depends upon the observer. And that was one of the things that got me to thinking about it. It's like, all right, I was talking about all this public outrage and stuff before, stuff in the realm of politique and everything, and then it's like, wait a second. If you just take random things you say from like particle physics, it's like, oh, it's based upon the observer. Really? Can we not extend that same thing to human beings depending upon the observer and their inertial reference frame, or socially inertial reference frame, some might say? Um, are we going to derive different results? It appears to be yes. Now again, hashtag not all, not all, but perhaps some of the less spectrumy of us may occasionally not have the amount of attention drawn to things that just, yeah, yeah, no, you said this and now you're doing the other thing. You, unfortunately, not always, but occasionally, people's mouths write checks that their ass can't cash. I think that's the technical term for it. Uh, oh, it's not a bloody bandana. I got it at Target. Okay, now, mom. But oh, the small language models, yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, well, we'll see, Jack's right there. That just very, it's very simple. People will want to listen. I've talked with people very, very far. People say phrases. I've literally far right, far left, up, down, left, right. I don't really care. Most folks just want to live a good life and be left alone. That said, no one group or community has a monopoly on assholes. Once, once, once I was literally told that, it's like, oh my God, it just makes sense. Because you boil it down, especially when you're not on stage, because it's not like anyone will ever perform differently on the internet than if they were in private. And it's not like we're playing a bunch of characters or stuff. That's what the sunglasses are for. Um, I don't have them on my head. They're a 404. But that's one of those things where you realize some folks, especially if you do the Socratic method. Well, is that what they really mean? Is that what you really care about? Blah blah. I've had it on more than one occasion. You dissect, and you're acting in good faith. I don't like them. That's an honest answer. Not a good answer, but it's an honest answer. And once you get down to I just don't like them, that's fine. You realize that, like, all right, there's some folks that aren't going to jive. It's going to be like certain. You get cats that don't know each other. Sometimes, yeah, it's not going to work. They're not going to play well together. Dude, that's what I got out of politics. I realized, wait, these people really don't like each other, and they think that the other person existing is a bane against humanity, and it's one of the worst things in the world. Very simple. Just, just legalize dueling. Amon, I'm sorry. This is a bit out of the ordinary. Normally, we talk about scientific stuff and things. We had a little discussion earlier about will LLMs destroy academia? I don't usually do much of the commentary. That's why it's a little bit of a lower turnout, I think, because we're more in the sciencey algorithm. A lot of it is work here at the Physics Monastery. That did well. Usually stuff more like this. Not always. I just try to break it down in a more simple way. Recent chats we discussed alternative cosmological models, methods about conjecture models of calculating the Higgs boson and stuff, just stuff like that. But I'd seen let's go back and because Mon is new here, so let's just go back over here. So this is the clickbaity thing. So however you happen to come into this, all right. So basically, shortly before we did this, I saw this from phys.org. And you initially see this, and they have far too many hashtags. Nearly half the students in seven European countries express concern over plagiarism detection software leading to counterproductive writing practices. Clearer guidelines in education on NCAs are needed. Okay. The long story short is some people may see this and they may have been like, oh, just a bunch of cheating students. Blah, blah, blah. Students are complaining because students always complain about different stuff. Okay. That's one way to take it. When you actually go into the article, you find that a lot of students just think, wait, even if I do my own work, if I get flagged, I'm going to get in trouble. So they're putting all these extra footnotes and everything like that just because like they're becoming very worried about what might be going on. The reason why I added this stuff, your standard destroys all capital letters because that's what we do. I'm like, are they talking about for students? Will this ruin things for students? Will it ruin things for professors? Now, the reason I say this is like with any new tool, and there has been some controversy because there have been papers that have been literally repealed because either it was wrong, there was a wrong analysis, some people were just blatantly ripping off other people, things like that happen. Now, if we do have new plagiarism software, and we do have stuff that's trained to find very similar things, I'm sure no students will ever use any of this on any of their professors or faculty members' prior works. Because we all know that everybody is good boys and girls and everything, and nobody would ever be made. My thing is, whatever tool you have, and depending on how you use it, just be ready for the same tool to be used against you. That's just a standard internet thing that I've learned from my time on the internet. Now, what ends up happening? Yes, the Physics Monastery. It's again, I'm sorry you got in here at one of our tangents. This is a little bit of just me ranting and everything here. I used to do that a lot more than I realized. A lot of people just didn't like each other. The solution is, I say, okay, we don't need that anymore. The solution to a lot of stuff, I claim, could be completely wrong, is if there are people out there that the thought of people that disagree with them, people that they've never met, if disagreeing with somebody is so out there that these people must literally be destroyed, all capital letters because it's important, very simple. Legalize dueling. I say we let consenting adults that have irreconcilable hatred in their hearts for one another engage in mortal combat under the doctrine of bodily autonomy. Your body, your choice, as Dr. Sarazawa said, let them fight. That's my solution. That's also why I got out of politics, because there were certain groups where I'm like, oh, of course they're going to say they like this. And then I started asking other groups, and it got an overwhelming amount of support. And then it was at that point I realized, because I had recorded like an hour of the history of dueling, going through all these cases and everything, laying out the case. And then I'm like, oh crap, this might actually work. And it was at that moment that I realized, do I want to go down in the history as the dude that legalized consensual murder? I thought twice about it and I started going into the science realm just because I'm like, that seems hopefully less murderous in the long run. But listen, we don't actually need to legalize dueling. I think a lot of this could just simply get settled in a ringer cage. Have some academics, if they have, they're really butting heads, and you hear about these things, academics are throwing like coffee at people and stuff like that. Listen, if you're really that rambunctious, not like combat sports are legal in all 50 states. I'm just saying, let's get them together. They can sit down in the ring, they have like a 3-minute discussion. And then if people want to continue the discussion on, they can continue it. If one person has an objection, then they get up and for 1 minute they can just beat the crap out of each other. And then they sit down and we continue our discussion. And they can elect to either continue the discussion, or if one person objects, they can get back up after 3 minutes and then 1 minute of beating the crap out of each other. Call it mixed mental arts, whatever you want. Uh, uh, Interesting. Let's see. Jack's just commenting that his father used to pretend to people that he could not read. Uh, that's for. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I see. People do all different things for all different reasons. That's the thing. It's like we might think we know. Oh, this person did this for exactly this reason. You know what? Whenever I try to fill in the gap, I'm usually just wrong. Just wrong. Occasionally, you might get lucky for some things, but that's okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining now or temporally in the future for my like ranty Monday and everything. We'll get back to the standard science stuff and things tomorrow, and hopefully by the end of the week, vehicles should be repaired. So we'll keep you all updated on the status. And other than that, take care of yourselves. So crazy world out there, but here's hoping for a better tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.